So here is a scenario probably a lot of you have probably run to. So you just set up a co-signing certificate on your updater. Everything works fine, and for a couple of years you don't need anything else, right? But then your certificate expires, right? But then when you get a new certificate, same issuer, same company, same everything, except the subject line in that certificate will be changed, right? It's not identical to the previous one. Or maybe the new certificate has a locality field, the old one didn't. And the updater will refuse to trust the new certificate because you were checking the full subject line and it doesn't match anymore, right? This isn't hypothetical, and we already had multiple customers with this issue in general. So in this video, I want you to show the fix that we at Advanced Installer implemented in this new release for 23.9 version, and that is the Expected Identity or OID. And what are we actually checking it with, how to set it up, and when it won't help you. So a quick recap on why this breaks in the first place. When you configure a certificate validation on the updater, the traditional approach is to check the subject field. Things like the CN or the company name, the O, the organization, sometimes the L for locality or E for email, so forth and so on. The problem is the subject line isn't something you fully control, right? Certificate issuers change their requirements over time, and a field that wasn't required 2 or 3 years ago may be required today, or vice versa. So every time you renew your certificate or switch the issuers, there is a real chance that your old certificate or your new certificate subjects line doesn't match the old one byte for byte. And if your update mechanism does an exact match, it just breaks silently, usually at the worst possible time when you're trying to ship an update. Checking only CN or O helps a little bit, but it's still fragile and it opens the door to different problems. A company name alone isn't unique. In theory, someone else could get a certificate issued with a similar looking name, right? So here is a much more reliable source that you can check, and it's not the subject line, and it's not the standard co-signing EKU either. If you open a certificate issued through Microsoft, for example, I have a test one here, as you can see, this has a little number here, right, that ends with 1. And if we go under the details, we can see under enhanced key usage, the same thing here. So what is this? This is a certificate done via Microsoft Cloud Signing Service, and every OID starts with 136 blah 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 blah. This belongs to the Microsoft Identity Verification namespace for trusted signing. When Microsoft verifies your company's identity for code signing, they assign a policy OID that's tied to that specific verified identity, not to the subject line, not to any particular field in the certificate. And that's the key property when you renew your certificate. Microsoft reissues it under the same verified identity, so this OID stays exactly the same even if the subject line changes, but change only one digit, for example the one at the end of the OID, the 1 in our case, and it points to a completely different identity, so validation correctly fails. That's what the Expected Identity OID field checks. Instead of matching the whole subject or a subset of subject fields, you tell the updater that new certificate must carry this specific insurance policy OID. And if it does, the update is trusted. If it doesn't, it's rejected regardless of what subject line looks like. So how can we set this up with Advanced Installer? Now, if we are looking, for example, at this version 1 of the application, when you go to updater, you see we have a new field here called Expected Identity OID, and this is set to this particular one that we have in the certificate, which I already have inside my trusted root certificates, by the way, under local. And if I go and install this package, let's say I will install version 1, but just to demonstrate it, I will change it to 2, just to have a mismatch. Let me save and rebuild the package. Okay, now let's install the new package, blah, blah, blah. Next, next, next. Cool. Now, I already told the updater what to look like. I have an updates.txt in ctemp, right? But I can actually force a trigger for the updater. So let's see. Okay, and now if I click next, oops, we will get an error that the update installation was blocked because we have a digital signature mismatch, right? Because we changed here the OID. No worries, we can change it back. And now I reinstalled the application, and if we go back and go to updater and force to check again if there are any updates, of course it will find an update. And if we click next, hey, the install for the version 2 of the application starts because the OID was cross-checked and everything looks fine. Now, the part you really need to hear before you go set this up. This only works for certificates issued through Microsoft Trusted Signing. That per identity OID under 136 blah 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 is something Microsoft Service assigns. It's not a general PKI standard, and third-party certificate authorities like DigiCert, Sectigo, or Global Sign don't embed anything equivalent in the certificates they issue. So if your code signing certificate comes from one of those providers, there's no expected identity OID for you to check, and the field simply won't have anything meaningful to validate against. So think of it this way. On Microsoft Trusted Signing Certificate, you can use this expected identity. On other third-party certificates, you are still working with subject-based matching, ideally scoped to just CN or O rather than the full subject, since that's what actually stays reasonably stable across renewals. I hope this new update is useful for you, and hope to see you in the next video.